Still drinking coffee. Coffee. Nectar from God. All right, we're going to hear about Jacob's ladder. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he lighted upon a certain place and stayed there all night because the sun had set. He took one of the stones there and put it under his head and laid down to sleep. And he dreamed there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven, and there were angels of God going up and down it. And the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you are lying, to you will I give it, and to your seed. And your seed will be as the dust of the earth, and you will break out to the west, to the east, to the north, and to the south. And in you and in your seed will all the families of the earth be blessed. And behold, I am with you. He's the I am. It's like in bold. So when he's talking about himself, and this is from the Hebrew translation, he is saying, I am. That's his name. Like if I said, and I will, it's an, oh, what are all these bugs? He's I am, state of being, as in I'm in the existence in the now. The Power of Now is the actual book, though it's not a total. This guy that writes the book, he does, from a variety of faith perspective, but every time God says I am, he means I'm here before, I'm here after, and I am right now. I'm always in this state of being. I am. I have always been. It's just like two powerful small words. They are his name. And behold, I am with you, and will keep you in all places where you go, and will bring you again into this land. I will not leave you until I have done that which I have spoken to you about. So Jacob woke up and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, but I didn't know it. And he was just like awestruck. And he said, how awesome is this place? There is none other but the house of God here, and this is the gate of heaven. So he got up early in the morning and took the stone that he had put under his head, set it up for a pillar, poured oil on it, and he called the name of the place Bet-El. But the name of that city was Luz at the first. And Jacob took a vow and said, if God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I'm going, and will give me bread to eat and clothes to put on, so that I can come back to my house, my dad's house, in peace, then the Lord will be my God. And this stone which I've set for a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you will give me, I shall surely give the tenth, the tithe, to you. Horseflies. They might be attracted to the sweetness of the coffee, the honey. Jacob meets his brides. Then Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and there was a well in the field, and there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it, because that's where they watered the flocks. There's a big stone on the mouth of the well, and all the flocks were there waiting for that stone to get rolled so they could drink some water. And so he's watching, and watching the shepherds roll it, and he says, hey, my brothers, where are you from? And they said, we're from Haran. And he said, hey, do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? And they're like, we know him. And he goes, well, is he okay? How's he doing? And they said, he's good. And look, there's Rachel, his daughter, coming with the sheep. And he said, look, it is yet high noon. Neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. So water your sheep and go feed them. And they said, well, we can't until all the flocks get here, and till they roll this stone from the well's mouth, then we can water sheep. So while they were still talking, Rachel came with her father's sheep, because she was a shepherdess. And when Jacob saw Rachel, who was the daughter of his mom's brother, so cousins, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, Jacob went over and rolled the stone off the well and watered the flock Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And he told Rachel that he was her father's kinsman and that he was Rebekah's son. And then she ran off and told her dad, "Hey, cousin Jacob's here." So when Laban heard that Jacob, his nephew, was there, he ran out to meet him and embraced him, kissed him, and brought him to his house. So he told Laban everything. He'd come there, and Laban said, "Surely you are my bone of my bone and flesh of my bone and flesh, my flesh and bone, my family." Basically he's saying, "Your family, you can stay here, visit." So he stayed there for a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my brother, should you," he's calling him his brother, but he's his nephew, but brother's like anybody in your family is your brother, "should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me what your wages will be." So Laban had 2 daughters. The elder was Leah, and the younger was Rachel. And Leah, it says here, Leah's eyes were tender. So, ow, I'm tender flesh for these horseflies. Some people say she was cross-eyed or beady-eyed or couldn't see very well. But whatever it was, it didn't make her quite as attractive because they threw that in there. So, Rachel was beautiful and well favored. It's all in the same sentence. And Leah's eyes were tender, and Rachel was beautiful and well favored. So poor old Leah. So Jacob loved Rachel and said, "I shall serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter." And Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to another man, so stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because the love he had for her. And Jacob said, "Hey, okay, give me my wife. My days are fulfilled so that I may go to her." So Laban gathered up everybody, and they made a wedding feast. In the evening he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to him. So they got all these veils and stuff all over them. They can't see their bride all clear until later. So he brought her into the tent, the wedding, the let's consummate the marriage tent. So Laban went in to her. And Laban gave this woman named Zilpah a handmaid, a woman's maid for Leah. So Zilpah comes in later as a second wife. But anyway. So the next morning, Jacob wakes up and goes, "Whoa, it was Leah. What the heck?" So it must have been kind of dark in there. Because he didn't know anything until morning light. So he said, "Hey, Laban, what is this you've done to me? I served you for 7 years for Rachel. Why have you tricked me? What kind of mess is this? Some cousin, uncle, whatever you are." And Laban said, "It must not be done this way in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give you this one also for the service which you will serve with me yet another 7 years." So Laban is, for lack of a better word, a shyster. But this was all, God orchestrates these things. Laban had a choice, but God already knew that what would happen. And there was a point to it because we have the 12 tribes of Jacob, and most of them came from Leah. So Jacob fulfilled her week, as they call it, like a honeymoon week. Then he gave him Rachel, his daughter, to wife also. So Laban gave Rachel Bilhah for a handmaid to be her maid, who ended up being another second wife, concubine or secondary wife, a lower class wife. So Jacob went into Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served another 7 years. So when the Lord saw that Leah was loved less, because the Lord loved Leah just as much as he loved the rest of them, and he saw that she was being treated as less than, not that it was her fault. So he opened her womb. In other words, she could have started getting pregnant. Rachel was barren. So Leah conceived. Barren means fertility issues. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Reuben. For she said, surely the Lord has looked upon my affliction. Because you can imagine being married to somebody who doesn't really love you, but he's coming in to sleep with you because you're having babies. But, you're like, that's what you're supposed to do because you're supposed to have babies, in their culture. So, but she knows that he doesn't really give two hoots for her and that he loves Rachel. So, naturally, you would be depressed. So the Lord blessed her with a baby, and his name was Reuben. For surely the Lord has looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. So she figured, if I'm giving him children, he will love me and value me more, instead of valuing her for herself, which is sad. But so she conceived again and bore another son. And she said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. The Hebrew must be pronounced Shimon or Shimon. And there's a little in the footnotes here. It said Rachel had to be in on this changing of brides. So Rachel knew what was going on. Obviously, he thought they were getting married, and then it's the other one. So they knew they were going to have to be married to the same man. She just didn't tell him. It also says here, whenever Leah said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated. It says the Hebrew says hated, but it is not literal hatred, but that Leah was loveless. And then she conceived again and had another kid, and she's like, now this time my husband will be joined to me because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. And she conceived again and bore another son. And she's like, now I shall praise the Lord. Therefore she called him Judah. Judah is how you would have said it in the Hebrew. I'm not even got a Hebrew accent here, but with a Y. Judah. But we say Judah. Then she kind of backed off of having kids. She said. So when Rachel saw that she didn't bear Jacob any children, she became envious of Leah, and she said to Jacob, give me children or else I'm dead. In other words, I'm useless unless I can have any children for you. So Jacob became angry at Rachel, and he said, am I in God's stead? Who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? He's like, it's not my fault you can't get pregnant. Am I God? And so she said, well, here's my maid Bilhah. Go into her and she's going to bear upon my knees. So in other words, you can have this woman. In other words, she didn't care that, he was going to go have sex with this other woman. She was more concerned about having children for him. Because this not having any children was a bad reflection on the woman. That's how the culture was. Really bad reflection for her. So as her maid, she gave her over to Jacob as a secondary wife. So he's like, hey, okay. So she conceived and bore a son. And Rachel said, God has judged me and has also heard my voice and has given me a son. So even though it's this Bilhah's kid, it's technically her kid too. So she named him Dan. And then Bilhah had another kid and Rachel's like, with great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. In other words, it's a competition with Leah. And so she named him Naphtali. So when Leah saw that she had left off bearing children, she took Zilpah, her maid, said to Jacob, hey, have some babies with her. And Jacob's got to go. He's like, okay, my wife don't care. I'm just having relations, giving me wives from their maids here. So Leah's maid, Zilpah, bore another son, and Leah said, a troop comes, and she called him Gad. And Zilpah, Leah's maid, also had another kid, and Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me happy. And she named him Asher. So, and Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest, because years have gone by. They've had all these kids. Years have gone by, and Reuben's out harvesting the wheat, and he found some mandrakes in the field, and he brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, please, some of your son's mandrakes. And she said to her, is it a small matter that you have taken my husband? And would you take away my son's mandrakes too? So Rachel said, All right, fine. I'll let him lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes. I can't imagine having this conversation with my sister. Hey, sister, give me the mandrakes so I can get pregnant, and I'll let him sleep with you tonight. Different culture, different time. I need some coffee on that. Ooh, man. I'm trying to imagine. I've been married before, and I'm trying to imagine sharing. But other countries still do these kind of things, so it's not a big deal. I guess it's all in your mind. So, and it says nobody knows what mandrakes are. It's mysterious. Theories range from figs to an herb promoting conception. So, it's like, okay, you can lie tonight for your son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening. It's like they're trading him around. So Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him and said, "You must come in to me tonight, for surely I've hired you with my son's mandrakes. I paid for your services with some mandrakes." Which is, it's just so sad. But anyway, so he lay with her that night. And God heard Leah's prayer, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. And she said, "God has given me my reward, because I have given my maiden to my husband." And she called his name Issachar. And then she had another child, a sixth son. And she said, "God has endowed me with a good dowry. Now my husband will stay with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. So she called his name Zebulun. And afterwards she had a daughter. Finally a girl comes in. And her name was Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel and heard her and hearkened to her prayer and opened her womb. And she conceived, because Rachel still hasn't actually given birth to anybody yet. And she conceived and bore a son. Then she said, "God has taken away my reproach." In other words, her shame that I can't bear any children. This is so embarrassing for me. And she named him Joseph, which Joseph. And she said, "The Lord will add another son to me." And it was when Rachel had borne Joseph that Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away so I can go to my own place and my own country. Give me my wives, my children. I've served you, and let me go. You know my service and what I've done for you." And Laban's like, "Well, if now I have found favor in your eyes, for I've divined that the Lord has blessed me because of you." So he said, "Tell me your earnings and I'll give it." And he said, "You know how I've worked for you, how your cattle were with me. You didn't have much until I came, and it's increased richly. The Lord has blessed you since I got here. Now, when will I also provide for my own house?" So he said, "What will I give you?" And Jacob said, "You will not give me anything if you will do this thing for me. I shall again feed and keep your flock. I shall pass through all your flock today, removing from them all the speckled and spotted cattle, and the brown ones among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among the goats. Of such will be my wage. So my acts of loving kindness will answer for me in time to come, when it will come for my pay before your face. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and brown among the sheep, that one will be counted stolen by me." And Laban said, "Well, surely it will be according to your word." And he, Laban, removed that day the he-goats that were ring-streaked and spotted, and all the she-goats that were speckled and spotted, and each one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hands of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob tended the rest of Laban's flocks. Getting serious here. And Jacob took for himself sticks of green poplar and of the hazel and chestnut tree, and peeled white streaks in them, and made the white appear which was in the sticks. And he set the sticks which he had peeled in front of the flocks, in the gutters and the watering troughs, when the flocks came to drink, so they would conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived in front of the sticks, and brought forth ring-streaked, speckled, and spotted cattle. And Jacob separated the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring-streaked, and all the brown in the flock of Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and did not put them by Laban's cattle. And it was, whenever the stronger of the flock conceived, Jacob laid the sticks before the eyes of the cattle in the troughs, so they would conceive among the sticks. But when those of the flock were feeble, he did not put them in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and many cattle and maidservants and menservants and camels and donkeys. So I'm not sure the significance of those sticks. I mean, I always thought it was strange. I don't know if these sticks somehow encourage them to mate, because I don't know. I'm going to look into that, because it doesn't really say anything here about it. So I'm going to stop there. I'm getting a little long, and I may break this into 2 separate mornings, because 20 minutes is longer than my usual. Have a good morning.